Hello everyone, my name is Sarun. Welcome to StellarCode. In this tutorial, we are going to develop an Angular application with server-side rendering and integrating SpaceX API to filter the launch programs based on the year. So, let's get started. What is server-side rendering? As we all know, a normal Angular application executes in the browser, meaning that rendering pages in the DOM in response to user actions. Whereas Angular Universal executes on the server, generating static application pages that later get bootstrapped on the client side. This means that the application generally renders more quickly, giving users a chance to view the application layout before it becomes fully interactive. With Angular Universal, you can generate landing pages for the app that look like the complete app. The pages are pure HTML and can display even if JavaScript is disabled. Although pages don't handle browser events, but they do support navigation through the site using router link. In this lecture, let's see how we can set up our development environment and create our first Angular project. So the first thing, you need to install the latest version of Node.js. It's basically a runtime environment for executing JavaScript code outside the browser. Node provides some tools that we need to build Angular projects. So if you haven't installed Node.js, head over to nodejs.org. In this page, you can see the latest version of Node for your operating system. And you can download the latest stable version of Node.js. When you do that, open up a terminal or command prompt and type node-version. So you can see the Node version that's running on your machine. Once you have Node, then we are going to use a tool called Node Package Manager or NPM to install third-party libraries. One of the library that we are going to install is Angular CLI. Angular CLI is a command line tool that we use to create a new Angular project or generate some boilerplate code. So go back to the terminal and run npm install -g, which stands for global, and finally the name of the package, which is at Angular/CLI. If you don't put -g here, Angular CLI will be installed only in the current folder and is not going to be accessible anywhere else. And if you are on Mac, you need to type sudo in front of the command for admin rights. After installing the Angular CLI, to ensure the installation was successful, you can type ng-version. So you can see I'm running Angular CLI version 10.17. So with Angular CLI is in place, now we can create a new Angular project by typing ng new name of the project, that is Angular-SSR. SSR is the short form for server-side rendering. This will generate some files, folders, and will run the npm to download the third-party libraries. This will take a little bit of time, so I'm gonna pause the video for a while. Yeah, our project is successfully created. After creating the project, now we need a code editor to start coding. The code editor that I'm gonna use for this tutorial is Visual Studio Code or VS Code. It's actually a beautiful and lightweight code editor. Go to code.visualstudio.com, download the VS Code for your machine and install it. Now, let's open up our project folder. Inside the folder, open a terminal or CMD. I'm going to use the git bash here and type code dot. It will open up our application folder in the VS Code editor. Let's use the VS Code's integrated terminal to run the application. So go to terminal, new terminal, and type ng serve. Now we have a live development server running on port 4200. Next, we can open up our browser and type localhost 4200. There you go. Here is your first Angular application with some default styles and links to documentation, etc. Now let's right click and go to View Page Source. You can see the index.html with some script tag. Angular just added the script file and style files to be rendered. But in case of server-side rendering, you're going to get the whole page rendered in the server side, and you will get that HTML to be served in the browser. Now, let's see how we can add Angular Universal to our project. So, go to the terminal and type ng add @ng universal / express engine. So Angular Universal is based on Express Engine. It has created some files for making the application server-side rendering like main.server.ts, app.server.module.ts, tsconfig.server.json, and it has also updated some files like AngularJSON, main.ts, app.module.ts file, etc. First, we can check the package.json file and let's see what got updated. You can see that this many scripts got added for running your application as a server side. Now we can go to our app.module file. You can see the browser module with the server transition passing an app ID, and you can see a new file created like app.server.module. Now you have two modules if you are developing a server-side rendered application, and this module imports app module and server module from platform server. Our main thing for SSR is the server.ts file, and this file is using Express. You can see the dist folder, index.html, and here we are saying to our Express engine that we are passing HTML into ng Express engine, and we are bootstrapping app server module. And if you go to this file, you can see that this file bootstrapping our app module. Let's go back to the server.ts file. You can see that we are setting the view engine, and this will serve our static files like styles, JS, images, etc. Here, all our regular routes is gonna use the universal engine. The one thing that you're gonna understand from this piece of code is that all our requests from our browser to server, each one will be HTTP call. So we will make some HTTP call, and that HTTP call is gonna return us with the HTML response. This is the run function to run the server. You can set any port in the environment file, then it will access that port. Otherwise, it's going to use the default port, that is 4000, to host the files. Now, we are going to run our application. Let's go to the package.json. You can see the command to run the application. So firstly, we are going to run the npm run dev ssr. I think you guys know how to run the script. It should be like npm run name of the script that you want to run. As you can see, we are getting a warning message saying that this is basically a development version and it's not a production version. The build quality will be different. You will get much bigger bundle size if you run in dev mode. So our application running on port 4200. Let's go to Chrome and see what we have in localhost 4200. So we got the HTML rendered from the server. Let's check the view page source. You can see that we are getting everything including all your CSS, HTML, etc. And this is very helpful for the search engine optimization or SEO. Now let's check the dist folder. You can see the browser and server folders. In the browser folder, you can see a bunch of files including the index.html of our application. And in the server folder, you can see two files like main.js and main.js.map. Now, let's see how we can run the app in port 4000. Let me terminate the server and run npm run serve ssr. You can see that it ran so fast, and this is going to run your files in main.js file. Now, if you go to the localhost 4000, you can see the same page. To build the application in production mode, go to your terminal and type npm run build ssr. Now let's go to the dist folder. In the server folder, now I have got only one main.js file and which is a minified file. And if you go to the browser folder, you can see much lesser files in it. In the next lecture, we are going to start building the UI for our application. As you can see in the design, we need two sections. One is for the filter buttons and other is for the contents to be displayed based on the filters that we are applying. In the filter section, you can see a list of years from 2006 to 2020. And in the content section, we do have our spacecraft image, name of the spacecraft, name of the rocket and launch year. So, let's start by creating a component for the launch programs. Open up a terminal and type the CLI command ng generate component and name of the component, that is launch dash programs. You will get an error saying one or more module present. In order to get rid of this error, we need to specify the module with the dash dash module flag. So ng generate component launch programs dash dash module app.module.ts. Now we can see a new folder with the name launch programs created by the CLI with this many files. I'm going to run the application in development mode. So npm run dev ssr. Now I'm going to remove all the HTML CSS from the app component HTML and giving the new component selector, that is app launch programs. Let's go to the Chrome and see what we have in the UI. Yes, that's working. In this project, I'm going to use the Bootstrap CSS framework. So type npm install bootstrap -- save. Now, if you check the package.json file, you can see that the Bootstrap library is being added. In order to use the Bootstrap CSS classes, we need to import the Bootstrap CSS in the style.css file. At import node modules bootstrap dist css bootstrap.min.css. This will import the Bootstrap CSS into our application. Now let's give a background color to the body. So body background color #333. Going back to the launch programs component HTML, and let's start creating our app UI by using some Bootstrap classes. So container row, I want a 4-column grid, so call md4. Before all, we need to have our main title and it should be inside a 12-column grid. So dot column d12. Inside this, let's give our main title in h1 tag with a class my3. So h1 dot my3. my3 will add margin in the top and bottom, and our title would be SpaceX launch programs. For the filter section, let's give a side tag with a custom class. So aside dot filter section wrapper. Inside this, let's define a Bootstrap card. So dot card body And let's have a wrapper div for the title and clear filter link. So dot filter header wrap. Inside that, h3 tag with the test filters. And an anchor tag with the test clear filter. Now let's give the title launch year with an underline. So define a div with the class dot filter subtitle and h4 launch year. Now let's use the unordered list to show the filter buttons. So ul with the class filter buttons, li with some random year, let's say 2020. We need to make this dynamically populated. So go to the ts file and define a variable called launch years with the array of years from 2006 to 2020. Now let's go back to the HTML and iterate the li using ng4 structural directive. So ng4 let year of launch years, and let's populate the year with the double curly braces. Now if you save your file and go to Chrome, you can see all the years populated. Now let's make the UI as per our design. So I'm gonna copy paste the CSS code to launchprograms.component.css file. You can refer the CSS code in the Git repository URL given in the description. Now you can see the nice looking filter section. Next, let's start on the result section by creating a new component called launch details card. So go to the terminal and type ng generate component launch details card. And we need to specify the module. So dash module app.module.ts. We got a new component folder created. Now let's go to the launch details card ts file and copy the selector name. Go back to the launch programs HTML. I want to have this component inside a 8-column grid. So dot column D 8. Now let's paste the selector here. Now let's create the card view for the launch details. So let's go to the launch details card HTML. Let's define a div with the class launch card. Now let's use Bootstrap card. So dot card body, and let's give some random text like h4 Now if you go to Chrome, we have a basic structure of the application. Note that our card is coming as full width. This is not the expected behavior. So let's go back to the launch programs HTML, and we need to wrap the launch details card component inside a row. So dot row dot call md4 and paste the component here. Good, that's looking fine. Next, we are going to integrate SpaceX API to make our application dynamic with the filters. So before that, we need a service injectable to integrate API. So let's open up a terminal and type ng generate service and name of the service, that is app. Now we can see that the app service ts file is created. It has been defined using @injectable decorator so that we can use the service in any of the component of our choice. We need to import the HTTP client from @Angular common HTTP. So go to constructor private HTTP HTTP client. It will auto import the class from @Angular common HTTP. Now we need two methods for getting the data. One is to get all launches and other is to get launches by year. Before creating these methods, let's take a look at the SpaceX API page. You can see a get method to get the latest launches. But in this tutorial, I'm going to use the version 3 of the API with the launches limited to 100 items. So let's create the first method, that is get all launches. Public get all launches. It is going to return an observable of type any. So observable of type any return this dot http dot get backticks and now URL of the SpaceX API, that is https api.spacexdata.com/v3/launches of limit 100. Now let's use this service method in our launch programs component. For that, we need to import the app service to our component. So in the constructor, type private app service. If you click on the app service, you can see the bulb icon. Click on that. Now you can import the app service into our component. Next, we need to call the get all launches service method in our ng-onInit lifecycle hook. We are going to create a separate method for that. So get all launches of type any, then this dot app service dot get all launches. We need to subscribe to it. So dot subscribe response of type any. We need to console the result. So console.log response. Also we need to handle the error. So err console.log err. We need to call this function in ng-onInit. So this dot get all launches and save it. After compiling, let's go to Chrome, right click and inspect. Go to console tab. Okay, we will get the error message, no provider for HTTP client. This is because we didn't import the HTTP client module in the app module. So let's go to app module and import the HTTP client module. After reload, you can see the error is gone and we got the response data in console. Now we need to assign this response in a variable called launch data array set to empty array. We need to store the API response to this variable. So this dot launch data array equal to response. Now we have a variable with all our launch program datas. What we are going to do next is iterating this data in the UI. Go to the HTML file. We are going to iterate the 4-column grid. So ng4 let item of launch data array. Now let's save and go to Chrome. You can see the launch details card repeated for 100 times. Next, we need to pass each item to the launch details card component using the property binding. So, square brackets, data, item. We are using property binding to bind the data property in the child to the item property of the parent. Angular passes the value for item to the child component, that is launch details card. Go to launch details card TS file and we need to use the @input decorator to get the passed data from the parent. So declare @input property. This decorator allows a parent component to update the data in the child component. So @input data of type any. To watch the changes on an input property, we need to use Angular's onChanges lifecycle hook. So let's implement our component class with onChanges lifecycle hook. onChanges. So it will get imported from the Angular core. Then ng onChanges. We can just console the data passed from the parent component. So console.log this.data. Now, if we go to Chrome, you can see all individual passed data in the console. If you expand any one of this item, you can see the mission name, launch year, rocket name, and for the images, we are going to use the mission patch small. You can see the image link here. We can use this single data to populate in the launch details card. So let's go to the HTML file. Let's remove the h4 tag and populate some dynamic values passed from the parent. Let's first show the image. So define a figure tag. Inside, let's have the img tag. In the source, we need to bind the image URL. So data.links.mission_patch_small. Let's give the alternative test as a rocket name. So data.rocket_name. Next, we wanted to have the mission name. So h5 data.mission_name. This will populate the mission name. Next thing, we need to show our rocket name and launch year. So ul li. Inside that, let's define the h6 strong tag. Let's have the test rocket name. So this test will be in bold. Then let's populate the rocket name, that is data.rocket_name. Let's copy the same li and replace the name with launch year, then data.launch year. And let's save it. Go to Chrome. Now we can see the image, mission name, rocket name, and launch year. As you can see, the images are not coming properly. So let's go to the CSS file to fix these issues. Let's give the image a max width of 100%. So img max width 100%. Now let's give some bottom margin to the card. So dot card margin bottom 30 pixel. Let's style the UL. List style type none. Padding left 0. Margin top 20 pixel. And save it. Go to Chrome. You can see the images and names aligned properly. We have a bottom margin of 30 pixel for each cards. Now we can show a loading test for every API call. So go to launch programs component and define a isLoading variable. With the default value as false. We need to set this variable as true in getAllLaunches method before calling the API service call. So this dot isLoading equal to true, and after the API returns a response, I'm gonna set the isLoading as false. So this dot isLoading false. Doing the same even if we get an error response. We are going to use this variable in the HTML file. I'm just giving a p tag inside the column D8 with the test loading and giving a if condition. So ng if is loading. We need to give an if condition for the row as well. So ng if not is loading. So if the variable is false, then only we can see the launch cards. Otherwise, we will see the loading test. Now let's save it and go to the Chrome. You can see the loading test while doing the API call. Now let's work on the filter section. So go to the launch programs HTML file. We need to create a click event in the filter buttons li. So click event. We are going to fire a method called filter launch programs. In every button click, and we need to pass the index of the selected year. So I. Now we need to do a small modification in the ng4 to get the index of the clicked item. So let I equal to index. Also, we need to pass the clicked year too. We need to define this filter launch programs function in the TS file. So go to the TS file, filter launch programs, index of type number, year of type string, return type any. We can console the index and year. So console.log index year and save it. Now let's go to the Chrome and click some random filter buttons. Good, it's working on the click event. Now we can integrate the API for filtering the launch programs based on the year that we are selecting. So let's go to the app.service file and create a getLaunchesByYear method. For that, we can copy paste the getAllLaunches method and rename to getLaunchesByYear. We have a parameter year of type string. In the API, we need to give one more query. So, ampersand launch underscore year equal to, we can use the template literal here. So, dollar parenthesis year and save it. Let's go to the launch programs TS file and create a separate get filtered launches method for calling the API. So, get filtered launches year of type string, return type any. This dot app service dot get launches by year, and we need to pass the year. Let's subscribe to it. Response of type any. We can console the response. So console.log response. We need to handle the error. So err console.log err. Now we need to call this method in the filter click event function. So this dot get filtered launches, and we need to pass the selected year. Let's go to the Chrome and see what we are getting in the console. Yes, we are getting the response as per the year that we are selecting. Let's go to the network tab and check the request URL. We can see the selected year. Next, we are going to give an active class for the filter items that we are selected. So let's go to the launch programs TS file. We are going to define a variable called launch year selected index of type number. Giving this in the filter launch programs method and assign it as the current selected index. So this dot launch year selected index equal to current selected index. Now let's go to the HTML file and give the li with an ng class. So ng class launch year selected index equal to I, which means index of the item. Then ternary operator, active class, else empty. Now let's save and go to Chrome. We can see the active class gets added on items that we are clicking. As you can see here, the data is not getting changed after clicking the filter buttons. This is because we are not assigning the response to the variable launch data array. So let's go to the TS file, and in the get filter launches method, we need to assign the response to this dot launch data array equal to response. Now if we save and go to Chrome, we can see that the data is getting changed as per our selection. Great. Now let's start working on the clear filter feature. This is going to clear the selected filter and show all the data. We need to create a click event in the clear filter anchor tag. So click. We are going to fire a method called clear filter. So clear filter. Let's define this in the TS file. So clear filter, return type void. In order to get all data, we need to call this dot get all launches. To remove the active class from the selected button, we need to set the launch year selected index as null. So this dot launch year selected index equal to null. Let's save and go to Chrome, select any filter and click on the clear filter link. You can see that the filters are gone and you will get the random data. Now, if we select 2011, there is no launch programs happen for that year. So, we can see only a blank page. Instead, we need to show a message like no data found. So, let's go back to the HTML file. Below the loading text, let's define another p tag with the class loading text. So, p.loading text. No data found. We need to give some if conditions. This should see in the case of no response coming from the API. So, ng if launch data array and node launch data array dot length and node is loading. Now, if you save and go to Chrome, select 2011, you can see that the no data found test. Lastly, we can do one thing like we don't want to show the clear filter text if we haven't selected any filter item. So go back to the TS file. Let's define a variable named showFilter. By default, it should be false. Go to the filter launch programs method and this dot showFilter set to true. This means that whenever we click the filter button, then only we want to see the clear filter text. Also, we want to hide the same if we click the clear filter link. So go to the clear filter method and this dot showFilter set to false. Now let's go to the HTML. In the anchor tag, let's give a if condition. So ng if showFilter. Let's try this in the browser. As you can see, by default, there is no clear filter link, and if you click any filter, you can see the clear filter link. And if you click on that, the test disappeared. Good. Now let's right click and view page source. We can see the entire HTML, CSS in a single page. We have successfully developed our Angular server-side rendered application with SpaceX API. If you like the tutorial, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys. See you soon with another video. Bye.